This is going to be a difficult period for all our members. It is going to be a difficult period. But we've got no other option, have we? We either roll over and let them smash this union and the trade union movement itself, undermine our industries, our jobs, our conditions, our health and safety and our pensions, or we fight back. And I know where this union has been on every other occasion, amongst the fighters. All those slogans about united, unity is strength, the workers united will never be defeated, the importance of solidarity and injury to one is an injury to all. They're not just slogans, you know. They're truths that this movement discovered over generations. That if we stand together in unity, if we coordinate our action, and we're strong and determined, we will win. Now, it might not be that you can destroy this government in Parliament. But if it means, through coordinated trade union action, through a coalition of resistance with social movements and the wider community, that we bring this government down, well, that will have to be our role. That will have to be our role. We've had trade unions disaffiliate from the Labour Party and larger other trade unions still in affiliation, no longer committed in the same way they have done in the past, purely and simply because after 13 years, we still have in place the Thatcher anti-trade union laws. And when we've tried to repeal them time and time again with the Trade Union Freedom Bill on 4 occasions we've raised it, both as the bill but as amendments to the government's own employment legislation, on each occasion defeated not by Tories but by new Labour ministers and new Labour MPs talking the bill out or voting against us. That's why trade unionists didn't come out in the same numbers they did in the past. But it isn't just that. That part of the coalition, public sector workers who in '97 marched out for us. Well, they didn't march out this time because we've privatised more jobs than Thatcher and Major put together. Those people who supported us because they thought we were a party of peace, alienated this time not just because of Iraq, but because of Afghanistan. And also, some of you may remember a couple of years ago when the Israelis were bombing the Lebanon, a Labour government standing back and allowing that to happen, not condemning it forthright, but even allowing the bombs to be transported in through this country that were then used against the innocents of the Lebanon. But it was also, we couldn't mobilise the pensioners in the same way. And here's an irony, isn't it? We promised them 13 years ago in opposition that we would restore the link between pensions and earnings. 13 years after a Labour government, who is about to restore the link between pensions and earnings? A Tory Liberal coalition. Extraordinary, absolutely bizarre that that should happen. And for young people, well, we couldn't mobilise in the same way. It's simple, really, because with tuition fees, we've loaded up young people with debts, anything up to £30,000 if they want to study for a degree. But the leadership election is now happening, and we'll see what comes out of it. It looks as though it's fairly clear what the result will be. It will be a policy of no change. But it's interesting, though, a number of the candidates are now describing how they didn't really support some of those past policies, how some of them may be mistakes in the past, and it's not down to them, it's Brown or Blair. Well, effectively, the main candidates in this election are the sons of Brown or the sons of Blair, aren't they? And I blame them. I blame them, yes, I do. I blame them for the deaths in Iraq. I blame them for the suffering that working people have had over the last 13 years. I blame them for the poverty amongst pensioners. I blame them for the 2 million children that still live in poverty despite having a Labour government for 13 years. And I blame them for what our members and every other trade unionist has to endure just to go on strike, to withdraw their labour, and when they do go on strike, the vulnerability that they have. 3 years ago, the veil got pulled back on how our economic system worked, didn't it? We saw the city operating with the greed, the bankers' bonuses, the corruption, all before us. And we understood then just how that crisis was brought about by the greed of these individuals and these institutions. We understood then what needed to happen. We nationalised the banks. We brought them into public ownership. We used public money to invest to stabilise the system, nationalise to stabilise. Now it's not the system that's at fault. It's not the bankers' greed. It's not the bonuses. It's not the corruption. All of a sudden, it's us. We're spending too much money on public services. We're spending too much money on keeping people out of poverty, investing in health, in schools. All of a sudden, it's public expenditure, and the solution isn't about public ownership anymore. It's about cuts in public expenditure. Cuts in public expenditure in every department. And we know what that means for us. In terms of rail, shipping and offshore, it means cuts right the way across a piece of investment. 1.5 million jobs going as a result of cuts in public expenditure and investment by this government. Not just in the public sector, but in the private sector as well, as a result of the knock-on effect of contracts not being awarded. Whether it's on rail, whether it's in sea, whether it's in the offshore industry, they're coming for us. They're coming for our wages, our conditions, our pensions, and even with the Young Review of Health and Safety, they're coming to undermine the health and safety regime that we've established over generations. So our response has to be firm and determined. It has to be linking up with other unions to campaign all we can, to link up with other social movements. Whoever is vulnerable and hit, whether they be employed or unemployed, whether it be a person with a disability, whether it be an individual family, whether it's young people or old people. This union, as you know, as it always has done, has got to be on their side. And we've got to convince other unions to come on our side as well. And that means, in the face of a coalition of Liberals and Tories, a coalition of cuts, we've got to have a coalition of resistance.